Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Comedy.Law podcast, episode 10. With me, as always, are Shirelle and Keith. And today we've got a guest star, Tyler O'Brien, a.k.a. the Longhair Lawyer, a.k.a. the Longhair Laborer, a.k.a. the Longhair Linguist. And I hope that's it because I'm running out of breath.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.
So where in the world is Tyler O'Brien? You know, you kind of pop up in new places, but right now I think you're kind of just in your home base for now, right?
A few moments later.
Did we freeze?
Tyler froze. I can't hear Tyler. I'd rather look at Shirelle anyway. How's your purple hair doing, Shirelle?
I just touched up the color a little bit.
It's more vibrant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It pops.
Those glasses pop too. What are those, hexagons?
Yeah.
They
don't match with purple hair, but it's fine.
It's fine. Nobody cares about matching anymore.
And you got to love technology, you know. You never know when your computer is not going to work, which mine didn't. This morning, I'm like, oh no. And you never know when your internet is going to pop in and out. So it's always an adventure.
It is.
It always does. You know, you get concerned. Oh, wait a minute. I have a hearing in a little while.
Yeah, hearing with the judge. Oh no.
Yeah.
I like the Texas lawyer that goes, I'm a cat.
So, Max, why don't we let Tyler pop off and try to get that fixed, and let's talk about fracture.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll be back.
So, Shirelle, have you seen the movie?
Yeah, I watched it years ago, and then I rewatched it again for our discussion. And Anthony Hopkins is an amazing actor.
It was just Hannibal, though. Wasn't he playing Hannibal Lecter again?
Oh, I didn't know that.
From the movie where he eats people. He had this character called Hannibal Lecter. It's probably his most famous work, and he's just this creepy serial killer. And in Fracture, he kind of has that same expressions, like facial expressions.
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed it.
I did too. I really did. I mean, I thought he did a great job. I thought that Ryan Gosling was really, really good. Also, I thought it was a very entertaining movie.
Yeah, I was glad we chose this one. Ryan Gosling, I've liked him since he was on Remember the Titans. That's like my favorite movie ever.
She's talking like she's had a crush on him. She's like, I've had a crush on him since Remember the Titans. Yeah.
I like Ryan Gosling. He's one of the actors that I really enjoy watching.
Have you seen the Barbie movie?
No.
I thought your daughter would want to see that.
No.
No?
No.
Not into the Barbie?
No, not at all. Actually, she's into like Lilo and Stitch and the Avengers movies and that kind of stuff.
But this one was really good too. I agree. I thought actually Ryan Gosling's acting almost was on par with Anthony Hopkins.
I agree.
But Ryan Gosling didn't have as much of a character to work with. Like the characters were underdeveloped in terms of anybody except Anthony Hopkins. Like it's just almost a one-man show that you're experiencing, and everybody's kind of at the whim of Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah, that's true.
I tend to agree. I mean, Ryan had a tough issue because of the very narrow character that he played, but he did a great job.
What was the fracture that they were complaining about in the legal system? Because Anthony Hopkins, that's kind of his job, is to find fractures, weak points, eggshells, stuff that are problems with the system. So I think the movie was trying to point out a problem with the legal system.
What do you think, Shirelle?
What do I think the fracture was?
Now,
Yeah.
what do you? Yes.
To be honest, I didn't think about it until Max just asked. I didn't even think about the title of the film in reference to like you said, Max, the fracture. So I don't know.
Well,
Um
what I thought was the double jeopardy, that was the fracture issue, but it starts with him finding the fracture that causes that plane to go down. And then he talks about the fracture in the eggshells, and he threw away the eggs because he found cracks in the eggshells. But I think that the whole movie, of course, it's him playing upon the legal system and saying, you can't convict me without evidence. And here I have been, I was in fear of my life. And so my confessions should be thrown out. And the judge did throw them out. And so the problem was that Ryan Gosling didn't have any evidence to prosecute him, so he gets off. But the whole point was, yeah, you got off for attempted murder. You didn't get off for murder. And then when you pulled the plug, your wife died.
right. I was just glad that Ryan Gosling was able to kind of get him in the long. I mean, we don't know what happens, obviously, because it cuts off before the second trial is finished. But I was just glad that he was able to find something to be able to catch him on.
Oh, I wanted him to start work at the White Shoe Law Firm to make a ton of money.
I'm
He
sure he
deserved
did.
it.
I'm sure he did. But the whole thing, the whole time, as a watching the movie, you wanted to find a way to get to Anthony Hopkins, right? Your desire was to convict him. And, for a long time, you thought, hey, this guy is going to walk free. And then
Mhm.
when you have the twist where he's back on the hook again, oh, man. I mean, everything you wanted to happen, you wanted to get to a conviction, looked like it was going to happen.
Yeah, it felt like you're kind of rooting for Anthony Hopkins there towards the middle. It feels like you're rooting for him, and then at the end, he essentially loses. So it's like, who do you root for?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that is a really good video.
Good.
Okay, we are back in action with the long hair lawyer. My big question for you, Tyler, is what if you find an interest or passion that does not have a word with the letter L? Do you just abandon that, or do you still pursue it?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just not a done deal. If there's no alliteration and if it doesn't align with everything else, then it's not going to happen. No, I've thought about it. I mean, honestly, I think I'll keep the L thing going if there's other stuff, and I've got a bunch of different ideas for different businesses. I'm not going to list them all out because I don't want people stealing all my trademarks before I can file for them.
Oh,
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some ones that are tough ones. Like if I open a cattle ranch is a good example. Thought about getting a couple cows, mostly just for my dogs so that they have something to chase around. And I cannot
The
come up
L,
with.
Tyler, L in that is the Longhorns.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an easy one. You all are down in Texas, huh? I should have thought
yeah.
of that.
I don't
Yeah.
know. UT might sue you.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I looked up because I was going to move to, it was looking like I was going to move to Texas for a while, and that's why I'm licensed down there. And I looked up, I'm like, oh, I wonder if anyone has taken the name the Longhorn Lawyer. Maybe I can like jokingly call myself that. But somebody actually already did that, and I think they have a filed trademark for some sort of radio show or podcast or something like that.
Man, the Texas bar is hard. I passed it by exactly what they tell you to pass it by.
By
Nice.
one?
1 point.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. Luckily, I was able to just wave in from my Washington score, because a couple years ago they switched it
Oh,
over so it's all UBE. So I did have to take the California bar exam after the Washington one, so it wasn't fun to take two of them, but I was glad I didn't have to take a third one to get licensed in
yeah,
Texas.
California's a hard one.
That's what they say, but I think it's a little bit of a misconception. I think they're all about the same. The test felt kind of the same to me. I think with California, you just have a particularly low passage rate because there are so many like second time test
Unaccredited
takers.
schools.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people from other states who really don't have time to dedicate to like an 8 week study program because they're already licensed wherever they're licensed, and so I think they kind of come
No,
in
I
a
did an
little
8-minute study program in Texas. 8 minutes, that's all I did.
well, good for you.
All right, Sherelle, what kind of businesses do you want to open up? What kind of, merchandise are you thinking about doing?
What kind of businesses? Actually, I would love to get into real estate.
There
So,
you go. That's a great idea.
yeah, big investments, investing in some properties, maybe. Gets that residual income coming in where I don't have to do anything. The money just comes to me.
That's a
That
great
would
idea. I mean, you and all the other billionaires all invest in real estate and you make a lot of money that way. But they're not making more real estate anymore. I mean, we're done. And so it keeps going up, up, up.
I thought we were getting Canada. What are you talking about?
Oh, we are.
Yeah. A lot of real estate over there in the Yukon.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people still own it though.
Oh,
Yeah, the problem there is you have Canadians there. What are you going to
uh,
do then?
I don't know. That makes it hard. I don't think Trump has thought that far.
Yeah, there may be a long-haired lawyer, Tyler, in Canada.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that could be. That's true. It's been a while since I verified, other nations' trademark filings to, make sure that I'm all squared away. But
I saw on
I
LinkedIn that
think
there's
I'm
a
the
program
first
for
one.
it. Yeah, there's a program for that on LinkedIn where it's called like Baidu or something, and it can search international trademarks.
Oh yeah. No, that'd be a good deal. I did look, because I don't do trademarks that much, but I have a little bit of a background, enough to know I needed to look for foreign equivalents. So I tried out some different languages like Spanish for like lawyer of long hair and stuff like that. And I couldn't find anything at the time, but maybe it's time for a refresh. I should look into that.
So, Tyler, I guess you can never cut your hair.
That's what people say. At some point, I'll probably get around to cutting my hair. I mean, that's what I've got all this great merchandise for. Makes people know who I am anyway, right? So, I think the long hair concept is more of an idea about the type of person I am, or the type of person that um, I really want to be involved in my business. So I don't think so much
Hmm.
that I have to keep my hair forever. I probably will for a while. I mean, so far so good. I got a little bit of a widow's peak going, but I think I'm going to be able to keep this for, a few more years at least. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Would you say that you're like kind of a hippie vibe? Because I saw like some of your merchandise, some of your shirts have that, peace, love, and happiness.
Yeah, my
And you got that. Oh,
yeah,
there it
this is
is.
one of
Oh,
them.
yeah.
It says
Yeah.
make love, not laws. So, a little
Yeah.
bit. I'm playing off that a little bit. I'm not as much of a, like hippie, go with the flow type of person as, I may appear. But yeah,
Mm.
definitely to some extent. Trying to be pretty laid back and friendly across all my businesses is pretty important to me.
I was gonna say I definitely did see on your website that you didn't want to be so much the stereotypical attorney.
Yeah.
What people's idea of what an attorney is, and I think you did a good job of kind of coming outside of that box and kind of creating like this, not creating a persona, but just, giving off a friendly vibe, a laid back, easy to talk to
Yeah.
kind of vibe. That's kind of how I feel, just in this few minutes of talking to you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, and that's the main reason I went with the whole long hair lawyer thing in the first place. I wanted something that would just make it, even if people didn't understand when they saw my brand exactly what I did, and make it readily apparent that I wasn't that kind of negative. I didn't have that negative vibe or persona. I wasn't going, whatever I was not going to be this conventional, really negative image of an attorney. So that's kind of
Hmm.
why I set things up that way.
So what I would like to hear, Tyler, is two
Hmm.
things. Tell me about your background, what you did, where you went to school, and tell
Yeah.
me about right now. What are you doing, and what do you find interesting about that?
Oh yeah. So I guess my background is I grew up in the short version, shortest. I'm not good at short versions, but I'll try. I grew up in a really small town in rural eastern Washington, about 1,800 people. Really involved in my school and community there. I graduated. I went to Washington State University, which is about an hour and a half away in southeastern Washington. Started off civil engineering. Decided I didn't want to do that, but the whole time knowing I wanted to go to law school. Got a political science degree there, a minor in business administration, and then I immediately went to Gonzaga University School of Law up in Spokane, Washington. For those anyone unfamiliar with the school, you probably know the basketball team. But basically, I went there thinking that I wanted to do basically be a construction lawyer, be do construction litigation. I got toward the end of my kind of tenure there. I worked for about 10 months full time for a construction litigation firm up there. And basically through the course of that, I was kind of planning on staying on with them for a while, but I didn't think that was really the direction I wanted to go. About the time I passed the Washington State Bar, actually about within a week of that, my uh, I guess girlfriend at the time, who's my wife now, also wrapped up grad school and got a job in California. So we immediately moved down there. I needed to take a new bar exam, and I toyed around with the idea of being a solo legal practitioner, doing transactional law, that type of thing. And I figured that that transition was a good opportunity to kind of move in that direction. So I took the California bar exam. I had a really fun job while I was waiting to get my license down there at
Well,
REI, which is,
let me stop you right there. You
yeah,
moved to California with your wife. Wow, talk about that. I mean, that's a big decision.
yeah, yeah. It really was, especially because I'd been in Washington State for my whole life. You know, my whole friends, all my friends, my family, my professional networks, all up here. Where I am now. But the thing is basically my wife is a chemical engineer, and she was wrapping up her PhD in chemical engineering at the same time I was finishing up law school. And it was kind of like basically for me, it was a pretty simple choice because I can be a lawyer anywhere in the entire country, and there's kind of all different kinds of practice areas that I could be involved in anywhere in the entire country. Whereas, for a, PhD chemical engineer that also has a very, at that point in time, had a very specific scope of what she was an expert in because that's how, doctoral programs work. There was only a couple different places where she could really go. And the opportunity for her that was down in the San Francisco Bay Area was a really good opportunity. So basically, we just had to take it, no questions asked, and yeah, that's kind of how that decision went. So
It's a pretty big decision for a small town fella to say, "Hey, I can go to any state." Wow, that's a big issue.
yeah, yeah. Well, and obviously, I sound confident in it because in hindsight, I've already done it. We went there, we lived there for 3 years. We did the, I guess you could say big city thing. We were really down in the peninsula, so it was kind of suburban, you know. But yeah, at the time, I was pretty apprehensive about it. I was not excited about it at all. It was more of a matter of just obligation, and it was the right decision to make. But in hindsight, I learned a lot from that experience, and that's why I'm at a point now where, I have the confidence to say we could kind of, to some extent, move anywhere. I still like having quick access to a lot of outdoor spaces and mountains and things like that. So I have a lot of preferences as to where I live. But ultimately, if her career, takes us somewhere else, that's just kind of the way it is, and that's okay.
Well, moving forward to what do you do now? What do you like? You've got a
Hmm.
law degree. Uh, where are you? Where are you now?
Yeah. So basically, I think a little more than 3 years out of law school, or 3 years from being a licensed attorney, and about that same amount of time into having my solo law practice. Most of what I do is transactional, and by that I mean pretty generically transactional. I do a lot of different things, some real estate transactions, business compliance consulting, and contract drafting, and things like that. But what I found I really, really like, and what I've always liked throughout law school on the legal side of things, is contracts. Drafting novel, unique, interesting contracts and facilitating transactions. So that's what I like. I also like doing quick little compliance research, the type of things that maybe an in-house counsel would do for a company. I encounter a lot of small businesses that need assistance with just knowing how a new executive order, whether it's from the state or federal government, affects them, knowing how a new employment law affects them, that type of thing. And so that's kind of where my interest is at there, is really in basically business consulting and overseeing, various transactions and drafting contracts. On the other hand, I have a lot of other interests too, and that's why I've basically gradually been kind of branching out into other things, trying to keep them under this same brand umbrella that I've developed. And so recently, I published a book, which was a couple years in the making. It's Max showed it earlier, but it's called How to Succeed Without Being an Ass. And I'm really proud of that. I know it has a pretty quippy title, and that's intentional to get people to remember it. But actually, there's a lot of meaningful things in there. So my little self-publishing company I've created is called the Longhair Linguist. And then I've got recently formed a licensed general construction contracting company. It's licensed in the state of Washington, in the hopes of basically doing some various construction work. And something I didn't touch on before was my work background in that. Most of my jobs, or let's just say a substantial portion of the jobs I had prior to entering into law school, were all construction or construction adjacent. And so that's where the
So
interest in
is
that
it
kind of
called
comes
a
from.
long-haired construction company, or what's it
The
called?
long hair laborer.
It's got to have an L.
Oh,
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
It's got to fit the initialism. LL.
So,
Yeah.
Shirelle, apparently your company is going to have to bond.
Yeah, you
maybe
need some surety bonds, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm all squared away for the next 11 and a half months or so, but maybe I'll need to, get a new bond company for next year. Cause that's one of the only requirements in Washington. It's, I'd hate to misquote myself, say the wrong thing as a lawyer here, but I believe it's a $30,000 bond you have to post with the state in order to be a licensed, general contractor. So that, and getting
Oh, I didn't know you were
insurance were the two main hoops I had to jump through with our Department of Labor and Industries in order to get my license. So
Did you
okay.
find those bonding and insurance companies on LinkedIn?
no, I didn't. I'm trying to remember which was which. The bond company I found basically through a just Google searching. And I think it was something really easy to find, like suretybonds.com or something like that. And they were pretty good. They had a lot of good ratings. That was really easy to work with. The thing I had a real challenge with was finding insurance. Reason being
Yeah.
that I have yet to set the exact scope of what I would like to do. And I have a background in some different things like, excavation, residential remodeling, and stuff like that. And the hard part is you can't really just call up an insurance company, especially one of the larger ones, and say, hey, what would it cost for me to do this? What would it cost for me to do that? Instead, they want you to have the entire scope of everything already laid out and then present it to them, and then they underwrite you a policy accordingly. But basically, I went through a couple different applications. I finally submitted my like contact into some brokerage pool. I went through like several phone conversations that I felt were really unproductive. I was about ready to give up. And then finally they sent me over to some really small, um, like small contractor focused insurance company. And I got on I almost said got on the horn with a broker, got on the phone with a broker, got on the horn with the broker. And basically he's like, what are you really trying to do here? Are you just trying to get your like license? Like, yes. I'm like, yes. What is the scope of things I need to do to make sure that I've met the state requirements? We'll get that done. And then I'll give you a call back once I, find a couple projects here and we need to increase the insurance amount. So the insurance was the tricky part out of everything. Surprisingly, working with our state agency in Washington that handles those licensing requirements was not hard at all. That was really simple. It was actually kind of a funny day because I went to that Department of Labor and Industries. I went to the post office to try and do a change of address. And then I went to the Department of Licensing in Washington all on the same day. And the Department of Licensing in Washington is actually all private contractors that do the work. And from a efficiency standpoint, it was kind of exactly how you'd think. The private business did the best, was the easiest to deal with. The state level business was okay, but had some mishaps. And then going to the post office was just an absolute nightmare. So
The red tape that they put up before we can achieve our dreams.
yeah, exactly.
So, Tyler, can you talk a little bit about being the young lawyer liaison to the Washington State Bar Association?
Yeah, totally. So I got involved I basically applied for that position last May or so, somewhere in there, because I was still living down in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time, but I wanted to be more involved in my home state. I've been kind of felt like I was on an island down there. Wasn't really developing business connections. I was kind of away from everybody I knew. So I was like, well, I should just try and find a way to get re-involved and reacquainted with Washington. So I got involved with the solo and small practice section, obviously because I'm a solo practitioner. But basically, I applied for that. I went up to a social event they had at a Mariners game in Seattle a little later that summer. I really enjoyed it. I got the position. And then ever since then, it's been a really good experience. So basically, I'm a non-voting executive on their board. I attended their retreat earlier this year and kind of involved in some basically different initiatives. The main one being creating a LinkedIn page and trying to get a little bit more of a internet presence, trying to get a little more involvement from younger attorneys. So that's kind of been what my experience is. But I'm only 7 or 8 months into, I guess, officially being in that role. So I'll be in it for another year and a half. Hopefully you didn't lose me there, but
No, we got you.
okay, cool. So yeah, it's been really good. I've gotten a great sense of community out of it. I would say I've gotten some mentorship out of it, and also the opportunity to help some other people out with, specifically with what am I trying to say? Like practical legal issues. We have a really active listserv where people are constantly bouncing ideas off of each other, asking for referrals, that type of thing. So it's been nice as a solo practitioner to feel in some sense as if there are other people out there who are willing to help me when, something's just beyond my expertise or I need to refer it out or I have a small question or I really just want someone to tell me something I already know to give me a little confidence boost. So
Right.
So you were a ghostwriter for a while, right, Tyler? Or am I mixing things up?
no, you might be mixing me up. I've never been a ghostwriter and I've never tried to be a ghostwriter. There's
Okay.
Actually, I wouldn't say a couple. I think there's been one person that reached out to me through LinkedIn asking me to be a ghostwriter because they've seen that I've had, some amount of success over the past couple years on LinkedIn and stuff. But no, it's not something I do. It's not something I'm interested in, and I don't see anything inherently wrong with it or anything. It's just that I don't really I have need to dedicate so much time to all my little business enterprises that I'm trying to do that I don't want to add another one where I'm marketing for other people, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I thought meaning briefs though, but you don't do that. Like I
Oh,
meant
oh
like,
no, I totally do. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Yes, basically, I guess ghostwriting is an interesting way of putting it, but I do some independent contractor work for a couple of different attorneys, and do along with that write some. Recently, it's been appellate briefs, so doing the opening
Yeah, that's what I
appeal
was
brief,
thinking.
reply
Yeah.
brief. Yeah, sorry, I
Yeah.
misunderstood the question. Yeah, so I do a little bit of that because of I got enough experience working at that litigation firm that I'm pretty decent at legal research and writing. So it's a big strength of mine, but I really just don't have any interest or much interest, I would say personally, with interacting with the court system, with handling all of the filings and those other things. So, to some extent, a
Yeah.
couple of attorneys, yeah, I help them out with basically all their writing, and then they file the briefs and go do their arguments. And we've had some great successes, and then we've had some things that just didn't go our way, but that's
Yeah,
how it
like my
goes. So.
favorite one was the one where you said, if the court does not find a genuine issue of fact after reading 14 pages of the statement of facts, then I'll eat my shoe. And,
Yeah,
and then the court rules against you. Oh
yeah, yeah.
no.
Well,
Uh,
they haven't actually ruled on that one yet. And just to be clear to everyone, that did not actually stay in the brief. That was
yeah,
just in
that
an
was only in
earlier
your draft
draft.
brief. Yeah, that was in your draft brief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes. That case was, well, speaking very generally, I think that we have an issue in Washington state of, and the attorney I work with agrees, basically like judicial economy. The courts do not have enough time the superior courts or lower courts do not have enough time to address all these matters basically. And so some of them are some judges are very quick to dismiss matters on summary judgment. And it seems to be a problem. And it seems like a fair amount of the appellate work that I do is all about that, basically just saying, please look at this. Like we're not sure why they thought there were no issues of fact. So it drives me a little crazy, but kind of is what it is. So.
Well, let me ask you, Tyler. There's a new thing, you may have heard of it. It's called artificial intelligence. What what do you what do you do with that? What has been your experience, and what's your experience now with that?
Yeah, well, my honest, because I've messed around with some things, and basically, I think the systems that are out there are only useful to a very limited extent, and only if you use them very efficiently. Like when ChatGPT first came out, I went ahead and tried to have it draft some different briefs and things, and the only thing that I could really get it to do that was useful would be to draft an initial complaint on a cause of action that I was completely unfamiliar with. And then I would have basically a template that I could go in and verify that it was close, make what edits were necessary, that type of thing. But beyond that, or beyond saying like, please draft some very, very specific contract clause or something. I found that using AI, generally speaking, for drafting at least, ends up taking much more time than it would have done just to do it on my own. And admittedly, I haven't had as many experiences with some of the more sophisticated stuff. I have some colleagues I know that really like what the Lexis AI legal research tools are putting out and find that really helpful and useful. But generally speaking, I really don't use AI much for drafting or research because in my experience it's just been really slow. I could see how it would be wonderful for sifting through an inordinate amount of documents, but the ultimate issue that I keep running into is that you just can't trust it, and so sometimes the time it takes to go back and verify that everything is correct winds up just being more than it would have taken to just write the darn thing in the first place, and you kind of miss the opportunity to learn and develop writing skills in the process. So I wouldn't call myself a hater per se, but I'm not really using anything.
All
You're
right.
a disliker. You're not a hater. I read that part of your book where it says, there's three words: the left, the middle, and the right. And
Yeah.
you want to gravitate towards the middle word. You're kind of just a disliker.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Exactly. Just a little cynicism.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me, Tyler, have you seen Fracture, right? The movie?
Yes. Yeah, I just watched it the other
What are
day
your
in
thoughts about
anticipation of this.
Fracture?
I loved it.
Oh,
I really enjoyed the movie, and yeah, it was good. I've never seen a bad movie with Anthony Hopkins in it. That's his name, right?
Yeah,
I'm
there's
bad
no
with
bad
actors' names.
Anthony Hopkins movie.
No, there's no
Yeah.
such thing. So yeah, I enjoyed things, all the twists and turns. I will say my background's not in criminal law, and I don't have that much experience in court. So some of the nuances of things that were probably procedurally done wrong or don't really make sense, I might have missed and were less upsetting than sometimes when I watch other things. But generally speaking, I thought it was great. I actually foresaw the twist that he had murdered. I spotted the issue that he'd now murdered his wife and that the double jeopardy thing wasn't going to apply. So I was very proud of that. I was a little confused, I will say. I didn't research it, but when there was that little montage of he's having this epiphany that there's no longer a double jeopardy issue and he's looking at all the cases. I saw that one of the cases he was looking at was the Bivens case, which I didn't think concerned double jeopardy. For some reason in my mind, that was a federal equivalent to like a section, what is it, 1893 tort claim or something. That was what was popping into my head, but I must have just been wrong about that. But anyway, sorry, I've
Max,
been rambling about it a
Max,
little while, but I thought it was great.
you're the Bivens expert. What is Bivens?
Bivens is kind of like bovine. It's an anagram for cow.
Ah,
Yeah.
Well,
You got
Tyler,
to
you
pay
look
attention to those things.
exactly like Ryan Gosling, so I figured, maybe you stepped into the movie.
yeah. Well, thank you. That's high praise for sure.
He did a great job. He was a winner. He was all about winning. And Anthony Hopkins said, "Hey, I found your fracture. Your fracture is you don't like to lose."
Hmm.
And he kind of played on that. And so he played on the overconfidence of Ryan and the fact that Ryan wasn't going to prepare, which he didn't
Hmm.
prepare. And he didn't even know that the detective was sleeping with the victim.
Yeah.
So it was really an interesting twist. And when Anthony Hopkins said objection, and then what he said, which resulted in the confessions being thrown out. Wow, that was a big moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
Ryan Gosling was not the most ethical of attorneys. He would sometimes plant evidence, and that's kind of a no-go.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
When did he plant
in his
evidence?
defense though, the it was actually the detective that planted the evidence and he just
I thought they were
considered
in
whether or not he
concert.
was going to use it,
Yeah,
right?
no,
So,
Yeah,
no,
they were in
I agree.
concert.
I agree with Tyler. The detective planted, and then
Uh,
Brian struggled with whether he was going to use that evidence.
yeah, they were in cahoots.
It's okay to be wrong, Max.
I'm often in error, never in doubt.
Yeah, you have to break up assume. What it kind of goes back to Tyler's book. That first word. It makes something out of you and me.
That's what Tyler's
Mhm.
book says too, is how to succeed without making an ass out of yourself. That's part of the book, is that you don't have any kind of tomfoolery.
yeah. Yeah. You know what's funny though? Throughout that entire book, I never once used that saying you just used, you know, that don't assume because it'll make an ass out of you and me. Not one time in 116 pages did I slip that in there despite the temptation to do so.
It was probably in an earlier draft, like the eating the shoe.
Yeah, probably something like that.
All right, so we're right about at the 43-minute mark. This is where it starts to go downhill. So we usually exit stage left before we go downhill.
Comedy Law, yeah, we're here to play. Max, Shirelle, Keith leading the way. Lawyers with laughs and jokes to slay. Tune in, folks, it's Comedy Law today.